back on another episode of We Making It Woo. If you want to be a part of the conversation, be sure to email me at katiesmiles.nyc@gmail.com. That's Katie because it's my name, Smiles because once again, my smile is very cute. If you haven't seen it, take a look. .nyc because that's where we at. So sorry about the short intro last week. And super shout out to Netta Yerushalmi. Sorry, Netta, if I'm pronouncing that wrong. For having such a great episode last week. The intro was short because we were short on time. We'll talk about that later. What am I reading? Actually, for those of you who don't know me personally, I am not reading right now because my girlfriend, shout out to Emily, has been out of the country. So I've just been a little stressed, just nervous, really. A shout out to anybody going through their O1 visa process. No, I didn't have to renew, but dating someone so closely that is going through that process, it's really, really stressful. She's been going, as of today, 13 days, and she literally just found out yesterday that she got her visa. Shout out to you, boo, for doing that. You're amazing. Woo. Just like that whole process, I ain't got time to read. I'm just trying to focus. Trying to meditate and make sure I'm not going to lose my damn mind. That said, what happened last night? So huge shout out to Dynamic Alignment and Britt Falcon. I have been recovering from a shoulder injury for off and on for about 2 years. So I think it kind of perked up when I moved to the city back in 2017. In this year, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, I have got a full-time job, and so I said if I was going to have the resources, I was really going to kind of fix my body. I am a firm believer that if you go so many days without pain, you're going to get cancer. I know that's not like I know that's not really what happens, but dis-ease does usually create disease. And so I think it's really important for me to make sure that if I'm going months and months with pain, I just need to address it so that it doesn't snowball into something bigger. So Britt Falcon and Amy Castaldo up at, the acupuncture place that's right there in the same building as City Center. The name is escaping me right now. But, Amy did some acupuncture on me. Britt has been massaging me off and on for like the last 3 months. And I'm finally getting some relief. Like, literally last week was the first day of the week that I was like, oh, wow, like I don't have any pain. So that's what happened last night. I got a massage and it was great. Also, Britt does cupping. I don't know if everybody's done cupping, but there's a cupping you do with the flame where they light it. It looks like they light it up in the glass and then they put it on your skin and then they rub it across. This cupping that I got last night is not that. This is the cupping where you put it on the skin. There's a little red like nodule at the end, and there's a gun that like sucks the air out, and then it just sits there. Heavenly. It is heavenly. Literally, it's like my muscles in my feet were so tight that the cups just kept popping off. They're like, nah, girl, you just need to do something else. So, anyway, shout out to them, and also. Dancers out there, New York City, y'all are like New York City dancers. I feel like are always great about like taking care of their bodies, but just young dancers out there, do your best to take care. You only get one body, so yeah. Without further ado, I have a special guest, but before we talk about the special guest, I want to kind of preface the conversation a bit. So I started working full-time back in January, and working full-time in New York City as somebody that identifies as a creative and trying to do things is really a full conversation. And if you are aware, there was an article that came out in Dance Magazine I think about 3 months ago. The author is escaping me, but you can Google it. Dance Magazine, I think it's like working full-time as a dancer. And I was really... I guess dissatisfied with the article. It's no shade on the writer. It just feels like working full-time is it's a conversation rather than a paper. So I think the medium of putting it on paper didn't do the topic justice. And so I thought, why don't I talk to my friends who have all at some point worked full-time or are currently working full-time, and some of them who have never worked full-time and they refuse to, just to really kind of create a conversation around something that is so, I've like talked about amongst us, but maybe not talked about with other people. So without further ado, to kick off this conversation, special guest, can you introduce yourself?
Special guest, I can introduce myself. What's up? What's good, world? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
Oh my gosh.
My name is Mikaila Ware, and aka Mickey. You can call me that as well, Miki. If you want to call me that, you gotta spell it like that. And so yeah, I mean, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. Mikaila and I met back in 2016. Oh, maybe no, I think it was 17, because I had just moved to the city. We know it was 16 or 17, and it was in the summer, because I think you were taking company class at Gibney, and I was also taking, it was like the summer intensive. Shout out to GDC. It was one of their classes.
It had to have been 2017 when I graduated from college.
And had moved here.
And I moved here straight from college. We came up to New York.
There you go.
Woo, child.
Yes. I'm totally going to do an episode on like moving to New York. It's just, there's so many conversations that I want to have, guys. So one thing at a time. So, Mikaila, you are originally from?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
And you went to school at Florida State. Okay. So, and I always try to preface like where people are from and where they went to school, because I do think that frames the conversation. I went to Texas A&M. Shout out to Texas A&M. Thanks and gig 'em. What? I'm wearing my school ring today, and if you know me, girl, you know this ring ain't gonna be on for too long. But you try to make it known when it is on. But I think that does kind of it can craft your perspective, and so I think that that's good for people to know where people are coming from. So, Mikaila, you moved to the city back in 2017. What jobs did you kind of step into upon moving into the city?
Well, I'm actually glad that we started talking about where it is that I came from, because I will say that by the time I graduated from college, I was already burned out on dance.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting point in my life where, okay, I went to school for this thing.
Right.
And now I'm already tired and sick of it.
Right.
So now what do I do?
Right.
So I think immediately I was already in like survival mode. I was like, I gotta hurry up and figure out what to do.
Right.
So when I knew that I didn't want to stay home, because I felt like I was going to lose momentum if I had went back home.
I hear that.
So that's why I decided, okay, I'm going to stay home for like 2 weeks and then I'm out.
Yeah.
But the reason why I was able to move up here so quickly was because I was able to do a summer internship with the Arts and Business Council of New York.
Okay.
And so that was a complete transformation from, you know, being basically a dancer, like in the studio performing all the time, to now doing administration. Yeah.
And I want to, because I think I do have listeners. I hope I have listeners that are still in college. I would just want to echo that the hustle and the way that you are successful in college. For example, I was in rehearsals Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2:30 to 5:30, and when it was like show season, when you have like the big annual spring show, we had also had like 8 a.m. rehearsals on Mondays and Fridays, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then sometimes we was rehearsing in between classes. Yeah. So you, in some ways, you were basically in the studio all the time. The reality of that post-graduation is it shifts, and I think it has to shift because of the way the field is structured. Right. Which we're going to talk about soon. But I just wanted to echo that. I think people didn't. I don't think people talked about that when I was in school.
Oh, I agree. It was a harsh reality for me. Yeah. For me to realize, like, oh, I'm actually not going to be dancing every single day. Right. And also the harsh reality of that, I can't afford to dance every single day. Right. I can't afford to be in class. I can't afford to cross-train at this moment in my life because I just graduated and I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to stay. Right. You know what I mean? And so, but by gaining that internship, it gave me some stability and a safety net because it was a paid internship.
Right.
And I was able to stay with a professor of mine here in New York.
Right.
So I was able to have resources that aided me in my transition up here to the city.
Yeah.
Now the thing is that the internship is like, okay, I'm learning about this new thing.
Because this is dance admin.
This is dance admin. Because through the internship, the Arts and Business Council of New York, depending on your interest, they pair you with another nonprofit.
And which nonprofit did you get?
I got Dance NYC.
There we go, because that's also how she and I connected, because Dance NYC is a huge partner with Gibney, which is where I interned upon moving to New York City.
So that's why you were like, why do I keep seeing your face?
Literally. Well, because if you don't know, Dance NYC has this huge symposium every year. And so I think it was the second year that I did Dance NYC. That's Dance NYC's staff. So Dance NYC Symposium was, I think, at Gibney the first 2 years. So when it's at Gibney, their staff is at Gibney around the clock, I think like 24 hours for a couple of days up until the actual symposium. So you got Mikaila walking around all day, and I'm like, I'm here all day. What are you doing here all day?
We're using one of y'all studios trying to get this symposium up and running.
Right.
That's what we was doing.
Right.
But the thing is that I was still an intern. I was an intern throughout the summer of 2017. And then, but it was a full-time internship.
And what can you clarify? So clarify what full-time internship looks like, and then clarify what exactly dance admin means for you.
Well, the full-time internship was basically I'm working, Dance NYC hours, it was 10 to 6.
Okay.
So I was working every day.
Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday?
Monday through Friday.
Okay.
I was working Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, and we were being paid through stipends, so we would just get like a check per month.
If you don't mind me asking, how much is that check if you're doing 10 to 6?
The set rate, how much did we get paid for this? Was it $1,200, I think? And then they just split
for
up.
A summer?
Yeah, for the summer.
Divided by 3 months?
Or maybe it was 2 months.
Oh.
It was from June to
okay, so you get about $600 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break that down too, because if you're making $600, and this is why I think it's important to have this conversation. If you're making $600 a month, the average apartment with rent, I would say, is like $750, $800.
Exactly.
So you're making $600 a month. You're working 40 hours a week. You have to have another job or some other source of income in order to make rent. That's not food. That's not transportation. And for the average moving New Yorker, like transplant, you're not going to live close to where you work. Right. I mean, you might, given that you have like a family member.
Right.
But I would say the more common thing is that most of us are commuters.
Well, I will say this. What also helped, shout out to Arts and Business Council of New York, because yes, it was a paid internship, but they also provided transportation, like the MTA cars.
And that's another thing that people, shout out to them for helping us out. Shout out to them,
because a lot of us, and the thing about this program is that many folks were still in college.
Wow.
I was one of 2 people that had just graduated from college.
Yeah.
It's the way that it's set up, the age range.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be like at least a sophomore in college in order to do this particular program.
Right.
And so they're very much aware that, we're broke.
Right.
And so, they had a budget. They gave us this amount of money. And the MTA cars is it MTA, Metro?
Yeah,
Where am
MTA.
I? MTA. The MTA cars were very helpful. But also, I had to, also admit that where I was staying in Greenwich Village with the professor. I could walk to work. Oh,
yes.
You know
and see, you have those. Yes, I was going to say, you have those resources.
Yeah.
But that's not, I wouldn't say that that's the norm.
It's not at all. Not at all.
Because Greenwich Village is also like a really wealthy area.
You're right.
It's beautiful. I love Greenwich Village.
And so my professor gave me an extreme discount.
Yeah.
When I was staying with her, I probably was paying $750.
Yeah.
A month,
and $750 is a discount in Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
Because I was paying $750 to live off of 156 in Amsterdam, up in Washington Heights. And if you aren't familiar with how if you're not familiar with how the city works, essentially I was living, I would say about 30 to 45 minutes from Gibney off the B train. And so that's the 45-minute commute every day. Whereas Mikaila, on the other hand, is not commuting and walking to work. And I bring that up because when you're talking about having to maybe make another source of income, you have to factor in what that source of income is and how you're getting there too. Mm-hmm. Because I have to know, for example, that on the average, I'm going to have to factor in commute time.
Right.
So that I can't work. I mean, I could, and I think I did. But I was like, it's a different type of hustle to have to work on the train versus like having to be somewhere at a certain time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, also, since we're on the topic of money, Mikaila was still using what was left over from loans in college.
Yeah. And that is, I think that's a reasonable solution, right? Because your source of income is just limited.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like, most of my time was dedicated to this internship.
Right.
And not only were we working in our nonprofits, but we were also doing site visits at other nonprofits.
Right.
And we were also, each intern was preparing to do like a presentation.
Right, like a final project.
And whatnot. And also, I was still trying to find time to dance.
Right, because that's why we moved here.
So I, am being very transparent with the manager of, not the manager, but the director of the program of the Arts and Business Council, and saying, like, I'm a dancer. And when I'm not here, I'm trying to, like, find classes that I can take in the evening. I was fortunate enough to do a film project when I first moved here to New York. So that was, like, my first, like, gig, if you will, which I think very much helped me kind of, like, I don't know.
Launch
me in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just like battling time. But still, at the end of the day, this is an internship. Right,
which is a good segue. So what was the transition from going from intern to staff member?
What was that transition like? What was interesting is that throughout the entire summer, I am applying for all these different types of jobs.
Right.
Just trying to figure out, okay, I'm being realistic with myself, like, okay, I'm going to need some sort of day job or consistent job, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so I'm applying to, like, other nonprofits because at the time I just felt like, okay, this is what's going to give me consistent income, because I knew for a fact that I was going to be a freelance dancer.
Right.
I knew that I was going to be a project-based dancer.
Right.
So having that in mind, I said, okay, I need some type of consistency.
Right.
And so that's what made me start applying to, like, these other nonprofit arts admin jobs.
Right.
So nothing was shaking. Nothing.
Right.
Literally, it took until the very last minute. Like, I'm talking, I had to move out of where I was staying by the end of August.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find a job.
Yeah.
The last week of where I had to move out, that's when I got the call from Dance NYC saying, hey, we want you to be our Symposium Coordinator. Is this of interest to you?
Yeah.
The Symposium Coordinator is a seasonal job, and it's a part-time job.
Oh, damn.
Mm-hmm. So that was one half of the battle.
Right. Okay.
That was one half of the battle.
That's one piece of the puzzle.
One piece of the puzzle. And then I realized, okay, but I still need more money.
Right.
I still need more money. And so still being connected to the Arts and Business Council of New York and this internship program, I mentioned that we had to do site visits.
Right.
And so another nonprofit that was a host was Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
And so through this program, I was able to make relationships with the folks at Lincoln Center.
Right.
And they had an accessibility fellowship.
Mm.
And because of the work that I was doing at Dance NYC over the summer with their Disability Dance Artist Initiative,
right,
that's when I was first introduced to disability artistry and what that looks like in administration and performance. And realizing that I need to learn more about this for sure, regardless of if I want to dance or not. I need to know. I just really need to know exactly like how to I don't know, like create programs for that's have the basis of accessibility.
Right.
And so that's why I was like, okay, I'm interested in this fellowship.
Yeah.
Put the two together. I have a full-time job. So
let's rewind just a bit because we didn't clarify. So dance admin on the day-to-day, what does that look like? What are you doing exactly?
Let's see how I can break this down.
Sure.
Okay, because I can talk about the symposium.
Right.
Being a symposium coordinator.
Right.
This day-to-day was me coming in and first dealing with registrations of the symposium.
Right.
So, I'm constantly on the back end of our patron center.
Right.
And, checking who has signed up and then also recording those
right.
people.
So, data entry.
Data entry. Thank you. Terms, words. Come on now.
I got your back.
And then you have that, but then you also have somewhat of website design. So you have to be on the website and you have to constantly update,
right.
Who are your sponsors, any type of updates to the symposium, you're putting it online.
Right. So then also managing deadlines and then making sure that people have the information that they need at a certain time. And the way that for you guys is just updating the website. Anything else?
Sponsorships. So
is that gaining sponsorships or is that so is this for you guys, is that cold calls or is that
there were some
emails?
Cold calls,
is that
there were some cold calls, but then there were some people that were returning, people that usually are our sponsors every year, so it's kind of just doing renewals.
So then if they're a renewing sponsor, what's how do you maintain them, or what's your job in that role?
Renewing sponsors, depending on the relationship that Dance NYC had with them, for instance, if another staff member had a stronger relationship with them, then I would draft the email, and the email would be sent from that particular staff member.
Right.
Or if it's someone that's is a little bit more standard or a little bit more neutral, then it's okay for me to go ahead and send that email. If the email hasn't been open in X amount of time, then pick up the phone and call, and call. Now, what became challenging was response time.
Right.
So if someone is yes, I want to give you money at a particular time where you're not in the office, but then you still need to respond. And you know what I mean? That's what became challenging, and that's when,
because you're on the train and they're saying we want to give you money, which
or
then
I'm at another job, and they're saying I want to give you money. So now I'm at this other job and I have to open up a tab on that computer to respond. So it's just it's managing time, but also being realistic as to okay, this actually shouldn't be a part-time job. This should for sure be a full-time job.
And I also want to talk about the opportunity for boundaries, because how is it managing personal boundaries? Because if you're not I feel like there's a common stress when you're a dancer in New York City. I feel like there's a common stress when you're just a person, you know? And obviously, if you're trying to make your dreams come true, maybe there's an added stress. And then when your job, for example, is securing someone's finances, I would imagine there's a certain personal attachment because you want those finances to be secured. So you also don't want to miss out on an email, or better yet, not answer your email. So it's how were you able to create boundaries that were healthy for you, considering all of those moving pieces?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. It was a very, very tough time for me. I was a newly grad.
Yep.
I had a lot of pressure.
Of course.
This, at the end of the day, this is an entry level position.
Right.
I'm for lack of better words, at the bottom of the food chain.
You are.
And so I was scared to open my mouth. I was terrified. I was terrified. You tell me something to do, and I'm going to do my best to do it.
Right.
Regardless of where I'm at, what time of the day it is.
Right.
And so the boundaries were never created from the beginning.
Right.
Even though it was expected of me to create those boundaries. I didn't know that expectation was there.
Right.
You know, so, you know, humans, like, we have good intentions, but if it's not communicated, then it's like...
And even, like, the practice of boundaries, I think college doesn't necessarily prepare you inherently, because the boundaries are almost laid out for you. Like, you know, you have to be in class by this time. You know, like, you have the board of advisors at our school. If you feel disrespected, or you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel like somehow a boundary's been crossed, for me, for example, I just dropped the class. Not to say that I did that often, but I knew that was always an option. You can't drop a job as quickly when rent is due. Yes. And also I think it is on top of that, you don't want to drop a job when you feel like you're an integral player, or when you feel like you're contributing something that nobody else is contributing, or if you feel like you really want to give that job that. And I bring that up because I think that situation then creates an opportunity for you to bend your boundaries, right? Because you believe in dance and you want dance to be as big as it can be, and you sending this email is just a part of that functioning system, even if it costs you sleep or stress.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that towards the end, when I felt like, okay, once this feather falls on my back, I'm going to break.
Right.
And I'm going to snap, and it's not going to be pretty.
Right.
And I think once I felt like I was getting to that point, I started to think, okay, Mikaila, where are you right now?
Right.
Can you bring your full self to this particular project or this demand?
Right.
If you're not able to do that, then you have to say something. You have to be like, okay, I can get back to you in the next 2 hours. Right. But right now, I'm at this job.
Right.
And they're wanting me to do this.
Right.
And so I simply cannot split my time.
Right.
Now, I will admit that I got into a little bit of trouble because, I mean, my definition of a full-time job is simply having 2 part-time jobs at the same time. That's where I'm at right now. So I don't have any benefits. I don't have benefits. I don't have no type of insurance. I don't have medical insurance. I don't have any of that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm literally breaking, y'all. And so, but when I say that I got into a little bit of trouble, is because at the end of the day, I committed to these 2 jobs.
Right.
I committed to these 2 positions, but still admitting that I didn't know what I was committing to.
Right.
Fully.
Right.
I didn't know what I was committing to fully. And so it's like I have to acknowledge the fact that I committed to this and I signed off on the agreement saying that this is the position that I'm taking.
Right.
But it's like, damn, I really wish I knew what I was getting myself into.
Right.
And how do I back out of this? But what I'm saying is that I came up here to dance.
Right. Because we haven't even talked about performing yet.
We haven't even talked about performing.
But that was the point, and I think for me that's the point, because I really want to clarify what, and I didn't do this in the beginning of the episode, but let me be clear. So a work week full time in New York City for full time, a work week full time in New York City, I think is 30 hours and above. Mm-hmm. For you, with these 2 part-time jobs, how many hours were you working in a week?
I was working about 40 hours. There were moments where I would be working from home on the weekend.
Right.
And I would still input those hours into my timesheet. But then there came a time where it's like, oh, Mikaila, you're working too much. We can't give you the full amount this pay period.
Right.
But we're going to have to give you the rest the next period.
Right.
And then you're going to have to cut back on your hours because you went over.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you're really like, you can't afford the amount of work that actually needs to be done.
Which is we haven't touched base on this, and maybe we can briefly. I think I know that this is super common with arts administration, because for those who don't know, nonprofits make money through grants and like government funding. But the problem is, or the potential problem is, you can't foresee what you're going to make because you're not for profit. a company like Old Navy or any other company that's for profit, you have goals and you set those goals, and then that money is made, and then that's how you make your, like, that's how everybody goes home with their hourly wages. When you have a for profit, if they don't get a grant that they got last year, sometimes whole departments are in jeopardy. And I bring that up because performing, usually every company usually is a 501c nonprofit. So the reality of you having to do more work for less pay is common. And if you pair that performing as that work, and then the other job that you have is another nonprofit that also can't necessarily guarantee you pay, that then creates a situation where you need a full-time job, because almost every job that you're in is in a position of maybe I can pay you, or maybe I can pay you enough this month, or maybe I can compensate you kind of fairly. And if you, and I bring this up because when I first moved to the city, I was actually like gung-ho to get a full-time job. Because for me, it just gave me, like you said, a safety net. Long story short, I was really swayed against it because it was like, Katie, you're not going to have time to dance if you work full-time.
Right.
And now I work full-time, which I won't touch base on, but I think it's important for people to acknowledge in this particular conversation the reality of not having enough. And that's why you end up working full-time.
Yeah.
Because you really just want to have enough in terms of money, but also in terms of, like, if you don't have health insurance, you kind of have to make more to get something like body work. And body work is what you need to get on stage.
Right.
And then, which I also want to clarify too, sometimes when you do a dance project, you don't get paid on time. On time would be like, I performed for 2 weeks, I get paid at the end of the 2 weeks. I've done jobs where I did a job back in August where I finished the job like right at September 1st. I didn't get paid out till October.
Yeah, yep.
And so you have essentially these full-time jobs that really keep you afloat in the meantime. And I just, again, we know this.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this when I was 21. I didn't know this in school, and we didn't talk about this in school. And so I really want to, like I said, and that's why I said it's a nuanced conversation, because I work 40 hours a week at one job, and I still have other jobs. But when I was an intern, I only worked whatever 4 times 17 is. Or no, 4 times 4, so like 20 hours a week. And there was also an internship that I did that I only made $200 at the end of 3 months.
Ooh, child.
And so you had, and I just give you these different scenarios to once again paint the picture that every story is different, but the reality of needing more money is consistent through all.
That's
and
true.
How you negotiate that space is your choice. But I want to be able to show the ins and outs of it. Is the purpose of the conversation.
Yeah, timing of money. I will say that I think I kind of just assume that, okay, once I get a job, the money is going to be coming.
Right.
I mean, like, you get paid every 2 weeks.
Right.
You get whatever every week for some people.
Yes, every week, because
because I know the Lincoln Center Fellowship, we got paid every week.
Right.
And then at Dance NYC, it was every 2 weeks.
Right.
Now, I currently work at Brooklyn Arts Exchange. We get paid at the end of the month.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like...
So, and to be really clear, so then how do you... Rent is doing the first. Metro cards, some people buy weekly, some people buy monthly.
Keep
so
going.
then groceries, I do weekly.
Yep.
So then how do you balance that when you only get paid once a month?
Broke beyond belief. Broke beyond belief. Hello? Because the thing is that I'm so thankful that you... Thankful. Thank God. I'm glad that you brought up the fact that performing and when you get that money.
Right.
Because I've been fortunate enough I'm in a dance company right now, but then I'm also fortunate enough to be in other projects as well.
Right.
And so it's like, yes, my definition of full time, y'all, I feel like I'm just working consistently.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not, at Bax because I'm the front desk receptionist. If I'm not there, then I'm in the studio rehearsing, or I'm getting ready for performance, or I'm like out of town on a residency, or whatever. So it's like I'm just consistently working around the clock. But the thing is that money is not consistent. It comes in when it comes in. I will say that I do know that I'm going to get X amount of money at the end of the month from Brooklyn Arts Exchange. So I know that for a fact. But as far as other payments are concerned, like, you know, I just don't know.
And I do want to clarify too, because I do have some listeners that are like, I call them real adults, because technically, yes, hashtag I'm so grown. I pay rent and other things. And I will actually have to start paying for health insurance at the end of the year because I turned 26. So I want to preface that, like, it's not to say that I don't understand. For all of those who don't know me personally, I've been working since I was 16 or 17. So I know actually what it means to work. I'd say for the last 3 or 4 years, even before moving to New York City, I had 2 jobs and I was going to school full time. So I know what it means to work. That's not the reason for this conversation. I think I didn't understand what it meant to work and then create. And maybe in some ways college prepared me for that, right? Because I had to be in class for a certain amount, but I had papers, or I had like for one assignment, we had to do some kind of visual. So what I compare that because like I was in school for maybe 5 hours a day. I was at work for another 5 hours. But then all the other time I was like building that visual. I was like really crafting these papers to make sure that they were like articulate and thought out, you know, thought provoking, you know. Those were my creative endeavors at that time. Whereas as I've gotten older, now post-graduation and living in the city, I have to be not only more meticulous about the money that I make, but I also need more money because the things that I want to create are bigger. Like for the podcast, for example, guys, though the podcast space is free, I have to get guests. That takes time. And I have an episode every week. So that's guests every week. Also, shout out to Dubois and Cameron Keene. I got them water for their episode because they asked for it. And I love what it looks like. I love that when I have a guest, I have water for them. Because it for me, it's about building a business or building, not necessarily a business because that gives me like negative connotations. It's about me showing up and knowing that people that are working with me feel cared for. That's a creative project in itself. On top of that, each guest that comes on my show, they don't get a book, but I offer them a book. Because again, I want them to know that like we're building like this large, like shout out to Hey Friend Hey, we're building this ecosystem. So if I'm giving them a book, I love books, they love books. It's almost like we're recycling the resources that I have and we're all sharing a bit. But those resources got to come from somewhere. And so if you take, for example, performing, and yes, I've also been grateful enough, shout out to Jasmine Hearn, I'm grateful enough because I've gotten consistent pay, and with Jasmine, I don't have to wait. But Jasmine is Jasmine's the anomaly. She's not the norm. And so I bring all that up to say this is why you get full-time jobs. Because you want to create and you need enough resources to build it. You can't always be in this place of not having enough. Trust. Y'all, and I haven't talked about it much. I lost so much weight when I first moved to the city. Because I wasn't eating. I was like, how little can I eat just so that I can like just survive. Whereas now that I'm a little older, because I moved to the city when I was 23, now I'm 25, I'll be 26 this year. It's not about surviving anymore. I'm trying to build some stuff. I need some money.
I was for sure on that survival mode as well. And because I was on that survival mode, the amount of mistakes that were made because I was literally just running around fearful. I was scared. I was like, I'm not going to be able to make rent, or I'm not going to be able to afford a train ticket. Like, it's just, you know, how am I going to get to my work if I can't afford a damn train ticket?
And you know, because technically we get tickets if you jump the turnstile. Yes, I think I've jumped the turnstile or two, but
I've done that too.
it's the reality that people aren't. I feel like that, and I think that's what I missed in this Dance Magazine article. Where is the day to day? Where is what are you doing in the day to day?
Yeah.
And something that I love about Jay Bowie and I love about Maria Ballman and just that like clan of beautiful Black folks in the community is talking about what does it mean to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And though it is a different type of work, Fulltime does offer a sustainability that performance can always offer.
Mm-hmm.
Like in some ways, I think because the dancing has become a bit more project based, it's not built to be sustainable.
Right.
Like you are sustaining yourself, be it that you're like a part-time maker, a part-time filmer. I mean, I feel like all of my friends do something else outside of dancing.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have learned how to sustain yourself, and dance is just one of the things that sustains yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you teach, which is a whole nother thing. But you have essentially like this large rainbow of sources of income so that you are sustained. Because the reality is, too, all that time, mental energy of worrying and being afraid, it manifests in weird ways. Y'all, I've yelled at some people that did not deserve to be yelled at.
Let's talk about it.
You lose weight. Relationships become really difficult to sustain.
Mm-hmm.
You are literally in this cloud. You can become in this like cloud of lack.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the world as like lacking.
You're like, am I enough?
Are you enough? Is this job enough? Nothing. You're like, it's like you're insatiable.
Right. Like the amount of time that you've invested in this craft for so long.
Yep.
Like I've been dancing since I was 5 years old. I went to school for dance. I went to college for dance. The loans, like the debt that I'm in, like the amount of money that I put in investing into this craft, and then kind of like thinking, oh my God, am I going to get that back? Am I ever going to get that back?
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot of mental energy, like you said, putting into that thought process, and yes. So
I do want to. We're gonna segue a bit because I know it got a little heavy. We're gonna get logical because logical is I think it's my strong suit. I do think it's good that we do talk about the reality in the day to day so that people can get a bit more of a clearer picture of what's happening. Mm-hmm. But I do want to also take it like pros and cons real quick, just real quick. So for me, pros of working full time, 40 hours or no. We don't have to even do 40 hours because also too, I've done the part-time thing where it adds up. What's great about the multiple part-time jobs, I had more time.
Right. Yeah.
So like I wrote a lot more when I had 2 part-time jobs. For those who don't know, I sing too. I sang more. I had more time to be with my girlfriend because that's important. What about you? What are your pros for like having multiple part-time jobs?
The flexibility. Part-time, literally, if a project comes up, I can ask for coverage. I can shift my hours around. I don't have to feel guilty for leaving
or obligated,
work, or
right.
obligated. That's the word. I don't have to feel obligated for like staying. I know that when I leave, this is going to get taken care of. Like this particular job is going to be taken care of. If there's anything that I need to do ahead of time, then I have the time to do so. I can communicate that to my colleagues.
Right.
But for sure, the flexibility is what's really a pro in, having a part-time job where you can just kind of like go away and work on your projects.
Right. Now, I work 40 hours a week at one job. Mm-hmm. So for me, some of the cons are I have to sit somewhere for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And I had never worked full-time up until this point. Like even with multiple jobs, they were all part-time jobs. So I'd never have had to sit in one spot for 8 hours. Y'all, my back starts to hurt.
Yeah.
My back starts to hurt, among other things. And also, too, it's like a new practice. Like, I just have never had to sit. Other cons, it's less obviously, it's less flexible. What is another con? This is gonna sound kind of like cheesy, I suppose, or like that's not a big deal. When I was part-time, I got to be in a bunch of different places, right? Because I'm in a bunch of different jobs. With this, when I'm full-time in this one job, I'm only in one job all day, so I got to see the same people, which is fine. But I do think when you work multiple jobs, it's almost like when one job finishes, I almost can get like a resurgence of energy because I'm starting something new at this other job. Whereas like comes the 6th hour of my shift, I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I will say that I felt that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Because when I first had when I was working at Dance NYC and Lincoln Center at the same time, there was a day where I would do 2 jobs in one day.
Yeah.
And that was tough.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I hear you about sitting in the office in one spot all day, which I've done before, and I was actually fortunate enough to like be in a space where I can like wear, sweats in a
yeah,
t-shirt.
because that's also not common. Like that's I work somewhere where dress code has been a thing.
Yeah, so like dress code wasn't really too big of a deal. So if I needed to
run from rehearsal to then go to work,
yes,
you don't have to pack a huge bag.
Yes.
With your lunch and your clothes and your shoes, and a whole nother outfit.
Exactly. But like leaving Dance NYC to go to Lincoln Center, I knew that okay, there is for sure a dress code at Lincoln Center,
right?
And I knew that I couldn't move around a lot being at Lincoln Center as I would do at Dance NYC,
right?
So it just felt like another form of code switching to me in that one day, which was exhausting,
right?
And yeah, so that I would say that was probably a con for me when I was working those 2 different jobs, but having to do it back to back,
right?
And then also a con that came up with the part-time job that I have right now is that if I leave to go work on a project,
right,
I don't know if I'm going to see that money again.
Oh, because your job is not, you're like at will.
Because, at least when I'm working at this job, I know that I'm going to make a certain amount, if I put in these hours.
Right.
But then if I go work on a project and they're taking like 5 years to pay me, when am I going? Like I'm losing money.
Right. So whereas when you're full time, I get paid days off. So worst comes to worst, I can. So for example, I have a residency with Jasmine. I could technically take off, and I have to get that approved. But I could take off and say I'm going to use my vacation time for that, so that would be like my insurance policy.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't get that with. You don't get that with part-time. And I bring that up because recently, last summer, I took off 3 weeks to go to Bates because I was a camp counselor. That was a great physical investment, like in terms of time, in terms of like that job on my resume. It made sense at the time. But had I not, like I had part-time jobs at the time. So for 3 weeks, I didn't make any money. The finesse, I think, of having part-time jobs is almost having enough jobs to be broke.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a squirrel and you're like gathering the nuts just enough because you're always anticipating not having enough at some point,
right? So
that you build it up a bit. Whereas with full time, you don't have to be like a squirrel because the money's gonna be there.
Right.
It's like a bicycle. As long as you pedal, you're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes the way things line up, I couldn't get, like, for example, I couldn't get another job that was going to pay me enough. So I just was like, I'm going to just take this job and take the L.
Yeah, the sacrifice.
And so how do you, regardless if you're part-time or you're full-time, first of all, which hustle do you prefer? Do you prefer to, like, kind of save up for the winter and then let it disperse? Or do you prefer to, like, pound the pavement kind of daily? And then also, too, I want to be clear, maybe you prefer different ones at different time in your life. But I think it's good to be in conversation about what those things look like.
I think I still consider myself to be very much emerging.
Yeah.
And I'm still, you know, discovering like the artists that I want to work for.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to like, in a way, like put myself out there, like on the market, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so because that's my reality now, like that hustle is very much like, okay, regardless if I lose out on money or not, like I have to do this project.
Right. Like
I feel like I'm constantly needing to sacrifice.
Right.
Because of the stage that I'm at in my performance career.
Right. And I think so many of us, I would also say that I'm emerging, and how I'm putting myself out there just takes more resources. So if anything, I'm at a space where I'm like, actually, I need more money. So, and I didn't talk about that, but I've actually took some steps back in terms of dancing. And that's a little bit loaded because I am singing, I am podcasting, but I'm at a place where I'm like, the things that I'm sacrificing, I need to be mindful of them. I think when I was working multiple part-time jobs, I was being stretched too thin that I wasn't even able to focus on what I was wanting to focus on. Yeah. And so I think both perspectives are not only valid, but like necessary. I think both of us are coming from a place of being mindful, like what's really important today, right now. And let's go from that place. So yeah, I do want to clarify too, because shout out to Hey Friend Hey, just once again, Hey Friend Hey has this thing like we're not gonna come together in misery. This episode had some darker moments, but we're still alive, and we are both, I would say, still thriving.
Yeah, I can definitely admit, you know, where I am today and where I was yesterday and the day before, and the progression that has happened you know, over the last 2 years that I've been in the city.
Yes, I love that we've been in the city for 2 years.
We've been in the city for 2 years. And so, I mean, I do have to remind myself daily, like, Mikaila, you're in a good spot. You know, like, you have a roof over your head, you know, and New York will consistently, like, will teach you good, all right?
You all right.
You got these people on the street that's not good.
Right. We ain't on the train giving out soliloquies about what we need and what we ain't got. And also, too, more so than that, I think both you and I are in a space where we're like, these are the people that we want to work with. These are the steps that we need to take.
Right, yes.
And we're taking those steps.
Yes.
I think when I first moved here, I didn't know up from down, and I didn't necessarily see the steps. Also, wasn't really clear about where I wanted to be. And I think that just having the courage, but also just the like the staple to say like, I know where I am and I know that I'm working towards where I want to be. That for me is such a huge part of success. Yeah. # we making it. Yes. And I bring that up too because I want people to just to know that like, yes, the conversation was a bit heavy. Yeah. And yes, the realities of figuring out how to make this work, full-time, part-time, whatever, it has its downsides, regardless of whatever you do, because I think being creative takes away some stability. And like how you find that stability is your prerogative. And I think, but also talking about it. Yeah. Being really clear that internships are 40 hours a week sometimes for you not to make rent at 24. I think that's good, right? Because I think so many people are like, oh, it's going to be so great. It's going to look like this. I want us to have conversations. So I'm like, no. Yeah. It actually kind of looks like this.
This is what it is.
And the more conversations we have, the more opportunities people can see, like, this is what it can look like. And I feel like that access is the whole purpose of the podcast, to really redefine what making it and success looks like, because it don't always look like what you thought it was going to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's great, so that you can feel prepared, and you can, and also like you can feel like we can feel prepared, but also everybody out there can feel prepared and supported. That like you struggling, we struggling, everybody's struggling, but we are in fact making shit happen.
Like, and what's interesting about this feeling of being alone is that we all feel alone. And, so,
and we be in the same room.
And we be in the same
ready
room.
On the 8 count. And 5, 6. Oh my God, I'm gonna mess this up. 7, 8.
That was good.
Ready on the ready, and literally looking around but why?
Yeah, and most of the time, we're more prepared than we think we are.
Yes.
So it's what these internal conversations sound like.
Right.
And how those internal conversations don't seep out into external conversations because, that can just skew the whole process.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just you have to be honest about where it is that you are, what it is that you need. And then, once you start to open up and saying okay, this is what I need.
This is not working. It'll come.
It will come. Exactly. The right people will navigate to you and be like, all right, sis, listen.
You can't do this and do this. Or you can, but then you can't get this. Yes. Honey, you cannot. Yes. Your cup can run over, but it's only going to have so many things in it, honey. I mean, it's just physics. You look, 2 + 2 = 4. That's all I'm saying. And if I can make that a little bit clearer for people, the reality is there is only 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. You have a capacity. I do believe your capacity can grow. I do believe your capacity can shift, but you do have a capacity. Mm-hmm. And I think what's great about getting a little older and being in the city for a little bit longer is your capacity shifts, I think. And what's really important becomes really, really important.
Yes.
And what don't is not.
Yes.
So when your cup runneth over, just run that out. You obviously don't need those things because they're not that important.
Yeah. Which is okay.
Which is, I think that's great, right? Because I think that's one step closer to you having the cup full of what you want it to be full of.
Right.
Be that time with your partner, be that being on stage, be that, being on Rodeo Drive Up Broadway, just shopping it up.
Yeah.
Whatever you need.
Yeah.
You can shift that to make that happen.
Yeah, and you are not your job.
Oh my God.
You do not have to be solely defined about this particular workplace that you're at.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And I think once that perspective shifts away from that, then you can begin to take the time for yourself and to realize, how can I make myself a holistic person?
Agreed.
What are the parts that I need to work on spiritually, financially,
creatively? We all moved to the city to pursue a creative passion. And I think sometimes, be it when you work part-time for a lot of hours or full-time for a lot of hours, that creative part is kind of what dies. Mm-hmm. Because I think so much of our identity, so much of our inner dialogue is about the job.
Yes, yes.
And keep in mind, who you work with, who you work for also gets into your creative space.
Yes.
So you then have to, have a moment to say, this is my job. Let me separate myself from this, because my purpose, identity is actually not solely a part of this job. Honestly, guys, I was a babysitter for a while. Mm-hmm. And it really, some jobs are just a means to an end.
Yes.
You need this money to film. You need this money to pay your dancers. Right. You need this money to buy books for your guests. That's it.
Right.
And having that division of this is my job, my creative passion is my purpose. I think that's so revolutionary, anti-capitalist, and just so important, right? Because your notion of making it may include your dance admin job, but it totally may not.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't have it, because you're trying to make rent.
Right.
But then making rent eases fears so that you have more time to put into that beautiful mural or beautiful project that you're making.
Yeah.
I think it's a delicate balance, but it's a balance, and it does come back to self.
You got to make these hard decisions, being realistic with yourself, okay, this is what I need to make in order to make ends meet.
There you go.
And I understand, and I do want to say that I do understand that, some of us are hoping and wishing that we can be stable based off of our creative practice.
Right.
We can, this is my full-time job.
And there are people that do it.
Yes.
I want to be really clear. There are people that do it. But then you have to then be clear about boundaries. You have to be clear about the jobs that you take, because some jobs are not going to. I know for a fact that certain dance admin jobs, people have literally stopped making because of that job.
Exactly. Yep.
So maybe you can't take that job because nobody else in that job is making anything and you want to be a maker.
Right. Hello.
And I want to clarify too. Yes, that takes time. Yes, that's a process to kind of figure that out. But I don't think it's necessarily a hard decision. It's just a choice. And for me, it's really black and white. I want to go here. They don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So I have to take choices. It's almost like alignment. Like, that's where I'm trying to be.
Right.
I think it's hard because of maybe external judgment or external factors that you really have no control over. But at the end of the day, I think that's why I said it goes back to self. Like, you got to be clear about what you need.
Right.
And also clear that, like, if this opportunity isn't getting you any closer to what you need, then maybe it's just not the opportunity for you. And that's okay. I think that, that's also something people don't talk about. Like, every opportunity is not for me. Shout out to alexea.com. Alexea EM, I think. But yeah, she told me that at such a young age. Like, everything is not meant for you. And if it's not meant for you, that's just one step closer to you getting to what's meant for you.
Yeah, the power of saying no. Even though it's like dangling in front of your face doesn't mean you have to take it.
No, because it's,
Yeah.
So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation. This was so fun. Yes, this is a completely different structure. This is definitely less me doing the Oprah journalistic questions and us really just having a candid conversation about what's happening up in the spot. So, Mikaila, where can people find you?
Y'all can find me on IG, Instagram, Mikaila, Mikaila.move. That is Mikaila.move. I do have a Facebook, but that's really just for family purposes, just to check in every now and again, make sure that they know that I'm alive and well and thriving. But, my Facebook is just my name, Mikaila Ware, Ware, W-A-R-E. I do have a LinkedIn, but whatever, that doesn't really matter. But anyways, Instagram.
Yes. And as always, guys, if nothing else you gain from this conversation, we both want you to make it live. We want you to make it breathe. But we just want you to make it. Oh, yes. And shout out to Mike Brunn and Kudu Karma for that fabulous intro song. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Oh, that was so